All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mrs. Sperlin, for being here. It's an honor for us that you're here. Mrs. Sperlin has been living in Crown Heights for over 30 years. She's a mom. You still call it cops. Still not a true New Yorker yet. Maybe now, exactly. Maybe now you'll be a New Yorker. No, okay. A mom, a safety kid mom, and a college teacher. And with that,
okay,
here we go.
Give me a second to clip this on. I guess if someone can't hear or something happens, they'll message somebody, right? Okay, fine. Okay, so hey everybody, nice to be here. Happy to. I can't believe Michal is not here. I wish she was here. She's like one of my favorite people. I'm sure that I'm assuming that you all know. I think like how lucky you are to have this amazing group, Living Chassidus, and to be a part of all of these amazing things that Michal does. And I am sure that Michal would say that she's lucky to have all of you from my conversations with her. So thank you for having me here tonight and allowing me to talk to you about a topic that will, Amir Tashem, enhance your future and your future marriage. That will, Amir Tashem, happen soon. And this class should be a keli to draw down the brachas for your future. And to be honest, I wish I would have known half of what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, like a long time ago. So I have to share that I absolutely love the month of Kislev. It's just a fantastic month. It's just like a happy month, and it starts off happy, and there's so much to learn about and to celebrate. You know, even on my college teacher chat, like, you know, one of our mentors in the college chat keep sharing like these little mini Farbrengens, and it's just so great, you know. And I was preparing for this class. I had to like decide like how am I going to start, and should it be Yudalek? Should it be Rosh Chodesh Kislev? Should it be Yudalek Kislev? Should it be Yutes Kislev? Or should I just focus on the parsha? And there was just so much, you know, the past, the whatever. In the end, I made a pretty easy decision just because the topic is Sholom Bayis, and I figured let's just talk Yudalek Kislev, even though it's past. And I want to talk a little bit about the timeless lessons that we learned from our Rebbe and Rebbetzin. And oh, you already heard all of this. You're hearing it twice. It's okay. It's good stuff. It's timeless. It's timeless. So yesterday I spent a lot of time at Chabad.org, and I came across a lot of different articles about the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, but there was one that caught my eye because it kind of segues into the second half of what I'm going to talk about tonight. And it was an article that mentioned a few keywords that love, sharing, caring, and respect, with some personal stories and examples of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, specifically on these topics. So one of them is not about the Rebbetzin, but let's just talk about one small little story. You might have heard about it, of the Rebbe talking about love, what the Rebbe has to say about love. I don't know if any of you ever watched this Chassidus on Gem. It's a great Chassidus of Hannah Sharfstein, and where the Rebbe actually helped her through her dating life and her engagement and her dating. And Hannah Sharfstein was discussing with the Rebbe some of her prospective matches that were suggested to her. And she explained why none of them really appealed to her. And the Rebbe the Rebbe chuckled and said, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm not paraphrasing. I'm reading what it says. I don't want to paraphrase the Rebbe. So I'm assuming that this is what was, you know, given the go ahead. You have read too many romance novels. Love is not the overwhelming, blinding emotion we find in the world of fiction. Real love is an experience that intensifies throughout life. It is the small, everyday acts of being together that make love flourish. And here's those words. It is the sharing, the caring, and respecting one another. It is building a life together, a family, and a home. As two lives unite to form one over time, there is a point where each partner feels that they are a part of the other, where each partner can no longer visualize life without the other. So, and the Rebbetzin really personified these three essential ingredients: sharing, caring, and respecting. So just one example of the, maybe more than one, of sharing. So the idea of sharing in your marriage, the Rebbe says sharing, it says sharings with one spouse goes beyond time, goes beyond resources, goes beyond a bank account or a home. It means sharing an identity and a destiny. It means being there for one's spouse, there and nowhere else. So they tell a story of a young man who was having difficulty in his marriage, asked the Rebbe for skula, a spiritual tip. And the Rebbe told him, after Shabbos, when the dirty dishes are piled high, roll up your sleeves and help your wife with the cleaning. Not long after that, someone who had overheard the conversation also consulted the Rebbe. I overheard your marital advice, and since then I've been helping my wife in the kitchen, but my marriage hasn't improved. Am I missing something? And the Rebbe responded with a smile, and he said, if your contribution at home was merely the result of my advice, motivated by the sense of obligation or personal interest, don't you think your wife would have felt that? It has to come from a place where you really want to do it, where you really feel the need to do it. And then regarding the preciousness of the sanctity of real sharing between a husband and wife, it's said that the Rebbe once told Dr. Ira Weiss, he said, the time I spend with my wife each day is as important to me as putting on tefillin. When we talk about the word caring, the Rebbetzin once told a relative of hers that she always waited up for the Rebbe, no matter what time he came home. And when I was reading through all these letters, I read that sometimes the Rebbe would come home when the sun was rising. That's how late he would come home from Yechidus. And the Rebbe would come, so she said, no matter what time he came home, and she said her husband should come home to a dark house and a cold supper to be eaten alone was just simply not an option, and she always waited up for him. So that's like an unbelievable example of caring. And then we get to the word respecting. And the story is told of a couple that was having communication problems. And they came to see the Rebbe. And the woman said that her husband was consumed with work. And when he finally found the time to speak to her, he criticized her, and he didn't talk to her so nicely. And the husband said that his wife had no respect for him and didn't listen to any of his suggestions. So the Rebbe asked the man, why do you think your wife should listen to you? And the man answered, well, because a woman must respect her husband, he replied. No, the Rebbe said. The first thing that you must follow is the rule that a man should honor his wife more than himself. Then she will have a husband who she can respect and love. If the man does not fulfill his role, then it is the woman who must respectfully bring it to his attention. Now, as simple as it may sound, there was one habit that the Rebbe, I think the Rebbe would enhance many a marriage if practiced. And according to the accounts of all those who helped out in the Rebbe's home, the Rebbe never addressed the Rebbetzin, which I found fascinating, from another room. Rather, what did it say? Always going to wherever she was in order to talk to her. I found that fascinating. Like, that's just like, when you holler at your kids, all right, it's the same idea. Like, you want to garner a home of respect or even friendships with respect. That's, just imagine the change in your tone when you're speaking to somebody face to face and you're not calling them from another room. Now, the reason why I thought that this was, of all the amazing things that I read yesterday in on Chabad.org, it fit very, very well into what I want to talk about tonight, originally when I was speaking to Michal. And that is, after I, like Esther said, Mr. Malka said, I am a college teacher. And about 3 to 4, maybe 5 months after a wedding, my colleagues come back and we have what we call a post-chasana class. And we talk about a few different things. And one of the things that we talk about is, I feel like people can't see me. No, it's okay. It's okay. I feel like they might not see my face. There's a lot of room. Okay, that's better.
Yeah, good.
One of the last thing that we talk about is an unbelievable letter written by the Frierdiker Rabbe by a young woman who lived in Riga, Latvia. Now, again, I'm going to say again, some of these words that you're going to hear are just, this letter was written in 1940, and it's mind-blowing how the Frierdiker Rabbe was able to give this advice to a young woman. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you the first paragraph of the letter, and then we'll continue. And if you want to know the source, it's in the Frierdiker Rebbe's Igris Kodesh Chelek Hey, Daf Nun Aleph, Chaf Tes Nisan, Hey Tafshin. If I'm not mistaken, Hey Tafshin is 1940. Someone could check me on that, but I think it's 1940. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes, I tried to phone you before I left, but you weren't home. I want to tell you what family life is all about in a few short words. I can't push it off because it's so important. And I feel that due to your youth, you are not taking an understanding of what life is all about and are not taking it seriously enough. Every single time, and I read, and I, what? So again, I was about to say, every time, and I read this letter probably 6 times a month, because I have post-Chassidus classes just about that often. And every single time I read it, my mind is blown. Like, what did she say to the Frierdiker Rabbe that the Frierdiker Rabbe felt so compelled to answer her, so worried that the Frierdiker Rabbe went to all these extremes to answer? We don't know what she said. One person told me that they think that she might have met the Frierdiker Rabbe at the train station and said something, and then the Frierdiker Rabbe was alarmed. And I'm not bad. Don't quote me on that. And so it was a long letter. The Frierdiker Rabbe wrote a long letter, and when I talk about it, I only focus on one paragraph. And the one paragraph that I focus on is what the Frierdiker Rabbe says: Familia Leben darf, family life needs, married life needs. Now, again, everything that I'm talking about are tips literally for life. Then we're going to go through these words and we're going to talk about them in the sense of marriage, and maybe as where you are right now, how it can help you, maybe while you're dating, maybe in your friendships, and obviously, ultimately, Mirchem, all of you for your future. So the first thing the Frierdiker Rabbe says is that married life needs verstand, needs understanding. So while really all of these words kind of apply evenly, I would think, to husband and wife, it does say Bina Yisera Nitna L'Nashim. Bina is understanding. Women were given an extra dose of intuition. But I think when we talk about understanding, and this is relevant to every aspect of your life, you need to understand where the other person is coming from. If you're dating, where did he grow up? What type of house did he grow up in? Are you the oldest? Is he the oldest? Are you the youngest? Is he the youngest? Did his parents absolutely never give him any responsibility? Now, obviously, he's an adult and he has to learn to be responsible, but we are shaped from where we come from. We're a product of the homes that we were brought up in. So we have to understand the other person as well. Because what I always say is, when you understand someone, like even a coworker, when you realize, she's been through 3 jobs, and for whatever reason, she had to be let go because they couldn't pay her, and she finally found the job, and she's acting out. Maybe she feels nervous. Maybe she doesn't have the confidence that this job is going to, you have to understand. And then when you understand someone, you can make room for them. That's the idea. You want to make room for the other person. That's what the Frierdiker Rabbe is saying. An example that I give of my married girls is I once taught a girl. She was one of the first girls that I taught. And she came to me and we're sitting at the post-Chassidus class. And she tells me, she goes, Mrs. Sperlin, I never realized I was so spoiled. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm the only girl and I'm the youngest in my family after 6 boys. Right? She was never given any responsibility besides getting up, going to school, coming home, doing her homework, and that was it. Now, I laugh because who did she marry? She married a boy from Kfar Chabad. So I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the culture in Kfar Chabad. But the culture in Kfar Chabad is like you're taking out the garbage when you're 3 and you're on your own. Yeah, on your own, but a lot of independence there, right? And I was so impressed with her that she recognized it about herself. She saw something in herself. She realized that she was going to have to work on herself. But how many of us are able to do that? How many of us are able to recognize something and work on it and really work to change it? Because she had to make her marriage, she had to contribute a little bit more than she was contributing. And I just thought it was fascinating how she saw that within herself. But you have to understand the other person in order to, like I said, make room for them. The other thing, the next word the Frierdiker Rabbe uses is energia. What's energia? So energia means energy. You have to invest energy. You have to invest energy in your marriage. And I'm gonna bring this back to where you are right now. You want to invest energy in your friendships, and you want to invest energy in the things that matter to you. But remember, once you're married, all of those things don't disappear. All the things that you were good at, you're still good at. Invest that in your marriage. And by the way, every once in a while, you're going to meet somebody who's going to tell you, yeah, my first year of marriage was so easy. No, not always. And that's normal. It's not always marital bliss. You get there, you work, you know what? You grow together and you get there together by investing, by putting in the work and putting in the effort. Now, there's also a flip side to energy. And this is my little pshetel. No one gave me this piece of advice to say. And that is the idea of don't waste your energy. So, there's this age-old piece of marriage advice that Amrit Shem, all of you are going to hear. And then I want you to have me in your mind just a little bit. And that piece of advice is don't go to sleep angry. Right? On its face, it sounds like the most beautiful, wonderful piece of advice. Who wants to go to sleep angry at the person that they are connected to and love the most? It's of course not. Where I take issue with don't go to sleep angry is sleep happens at night when you're really tired. You don't have a lot of energy. You might say something you don't mean when you're trying to resolve something and it just didn't get resolved and you're talking and you're talking and you're talking. There's nothing wrong with going to sleep with something unresolved. We can resolve it in the morning. And don't keep in mind, are you a morning person and is he a night person? Does he have to get up at 6 a.m. to go to Minyan and you get to sleep till 8? Is it fair to keep him up to talk about something that there's going to be no resolution to at night because you're both so tired? Now, I do have a caveat to my little piece. And by the way, when you wake up in the morning, two things might happen. It might not bother you anymore because you you slept on it, it's not as bad. Or in the morning, you're both awake and you're both clear-headed and you could talk about it and you could resolve it. But there is one caveat to what I'm saying, and I want everybody to remember this too. If you're both totally happy and fine and comfortable staying up and talking things out till, sunrise, then that's you. Go for it. You do you. But I just want you to understand that it doesn't mean that there's something terrible happening here, that you went to sleep with something unresolved. And again, how can you take this into your personal life right now? Well, we all have friends and we all have coworkers and we all have lives. And again, when is the best time to talk about something and to resolve something? Not when you're not clear-headed, not when you're exhausted, and not when you're feeling all the feelings. Maybe wait. Just keep that in mind. The other thing, the next word the Frierdiker Rabbe uses for is the word Übergegebenkeit. What does Übergegebenkeit mean? Übergegebenkeit means devotion, showing devotion to your spouse. So what's interesting about devotion is, and this is something that we learn as our marriage progresses, is when you first get married, you don't know what devotion is because you don't know the other person. You just know what you saw in your home growing up as what devotion was. And I keep doing that, sorry. That's where watching the other person, observing the other person. By the way, one of the things I must say, and by the way, I always say you guys are so fortunate to be growing up in a generation of better communication. I did not grow up in that generation, and I'm still working on my communication. I grew up in the generation of just stuff it down and pick up your bootstraps and keep moving, and it still works for me partially, but I know that I really, really feel and I see in the girls that I teach and the people that I, generally speaking, your abilities to communicate properly is really impressive. But in general, all of these words that I'm giving you today, keep in mind that they all underlying have a communication element of working on your communication and how you communicate. If I have time after, remind me, I'll talk a little bit about communication. But remember, communication is not just, blurting something out. It's also vulnerable communication, saying how you feel. But going back to the idea of devotion and showing devotion to each other, you have to use your words. You have to use your words and say, it really means a lot to me when you fill up the car with gas. And then lo and behold, the next time you get into the car, it's not on empty. The car is full of gas and it just feels good because he heard and he was able to do that for you, and vice versa. And again, it takes time. It takes observation to watch the other person. You have to really take into account what they appreciate. And again, this goes obviously 100% both ways. And I had this crazy example I had a girl who got married, and she told me, she goes, it's the craziest thing. My husband is the oldest of 14 children, kind of, and a happy, functioning home. But the weirdest things to me are the most important to him, like having his own drawer and having his own space. He hasn't had that. Like, he shared, it was always sharing his whole life. Not sharing, but had his space with other people. And just the little tiniest things that like show that that I do for him, that show that he has his own stuff, makes him feel good. So yeah, that works for you. Now, would that work for any? I don't know. Maybe it would work for somebody here. I don't know. Well, the truth is, I was an out-of-towner for 5 years before I got married. So having my own closet was amazing. I'm just giving an example. But the idea of devotion is really watching the other person, observing them, and realizing what they appreciate. The next word the Frierdiker Rabbe says is gedult. And gedult means patience. You have to have patience. Now, another thing about your generation that I don't envy is you're not living in the generation of patience. You're not. You're living in a generation where you want it and you can get it delivered to your door. Lickety split, and we're used to that. Any new relationship takes patience. Also, we have to really acknowledge and be honest that we come into a new relationship with expectations. While expectations in your mind are great, they're in your mind, and doesn't always happen because it's what you thought, right? So my thing with expectations is sometimes they can work out, yay. And sometimes you have to just put your expectations like on the side and let all these other beautiful things play out. And some of what you thought was super necessary will happen, and you'll get that. And some of it not. And some of it you'll compromise on, and you'll figure out a way to make it work. But there's this idea in marriage, and I think, by the way, I'm going to say in life, not just marriage. There's this idea where we have to learn how to live in an uncomfortable space. Like, you had an argument with your friend, and you had a disagreement, and you need to talk it out. It's bothering you. You need to talk to your mashpia, and you can't get through to her. You have to live in that uncomfortable space and learn how to be there and live there and exist there until it can be resolved. And that takes patience. That takes patience. Living in that uncomfortable space is necessary in life. It's a really good life skill. And yeah, it's not always easy, but we can learn a lot from learning how to live in that space. Number 5, the Frierdiker Rabbe says, is Gutherzigkeit. What's Gutherzigkeit? So the Frierdiker Rabbe just ticks them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then there was a lot of very, very, very experienced college teachers and marriage coaches that took these words and kind of extrapolated what they could mean. And again, anybody who has anything to add to it, like what it might mean to you when you hear the word, tell me. I think it's great because there's so much to learn from these words. And remember, the Frierdiker Rebbe's motive was just simply to help this young woman who seemed to be struggling. So what is Gutherzigkeit? Gutherzigkeit means to be giving. And that means simply doing something for each other just because. Remember, in marriage, there's no tit for tat. There's no cheshbainis, like I did this, you did this. We're not like even Steven. Someone once told me, this is actually very recently, and it actually helped me a lot, is that marriage is not 50-50. If you're in like, everything's going, it's 100-100, both of you, but sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it just is. One of your spouse isn't well, and one of you is just giving a lot more all the time. It happens, and then it gets reversed. It just happens. But when we talk about to be giving, of all 10, I'll confess, like, this is my favorite. Why is it my favorite? Because to be giving is really just the little things. It's the little things. It's, that like your husband loves a certain bottle of wine and he doesn't want to buy it for himself because it's expensive. And one Friday you buy the bottle of wine and you have it on the shop's table. Your husband knows that you love a certain frap from Kosher Town and he goes and he buys it for you. Just like no reason. It doesn't always, so right, this goes kind of like this, kind of the love language talk, like what's your love language? It could just be a text message. Hey, how are you? Right? It's just, the reason why I love it so much is, to me, it shows a thoughtfulness. And nothing feels better than knowing that you're thinking about each other. And you want to have each other on each other's minds. You want to do those things. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said about devotion. You have to use your words. You have to say, thank you for bringing me that bottle of water before I went to bed. I was so thirsty. Just, that's it. Not a big deal. Not, oh yeah, you're so, it's not like over complimenting. It's simple. It's just acknowledging. I'll also say, some of you might be sitting, or you might be thinking that in general, you're just that type of personality. You're a giver. Some people by nature are just givers. You see with your roommates, you see in your apartment how you're the one who's cleaning, or you're the one who's cooking, or some of us, you could be like me, and I would kick my roommates out of my room, and I would clean my room, and I would lock the door, and I would clean everything myself because I couldn't handle it, right? That was me, my way of giving, I guess. Going back to that time in my life. But it can be taught, kind of. It can be learned. And like I said, you use your words and you express what type of things mean something to you. And just keep in mind that, again, one of you might be better at this than the other, and that's all right too. Again, it's not a tit for tat. It's not a cheshbon. It's just one of those things that just feels good to be giving. Number 6, the Frierdiker Rabbe says, is reinigkeit. What's reinigkeit? So reinigkeit is defined as cleanliness. This is fascinating, like cleanliness. So when it's been thought about and taken apart, really it's explained that. So it could be, it has a gashmiistic explanation and a ruchniistic explanation. And yes, obviously all of us know that a clean home does wonders for your Sholom Bayis. Okay, physically clean. But I think this is something that you can all think about now. What type of cleanliness, ruchniistic cleanliness, are you going to have in your home? What type of music are you going to have in your home? What type of books are you reading? What type of movies are you watching? What type of language are you using? And then keep in mind that all of this lends to the ruchnius of your home. Bottom line, and it's so basic and so simple, but it is. The foundation of your home is built on Torah mitzvahs. And we want to have that strong foundation. Now, when you're dating, yes, you're going to look for somebody who shares a lot of your values. Yes, I think that's very important. But a lot of times I found that it's okay if we're not exactly on the same page. This is what I say. If you're on the same page, it's okay. If you want to be in the same book, it's okay. You're not always going to be on the same page. And guess what? From my own personal experience, one of the things, like, I always look for my children, like, I want the girl that I look for my boys to be a little stronger than my boys. I do. And I think that that's for me. That's what I look for. It could be so far. I think so far so good. But it's okay. You want to have a strong foundation. You want to obviously do that research, but don't run away if not everything is exactly the same. I think you should keep that in mind, because it's not always going to be. And but obviously we want that strong foundation at the same time. Like I said, same page, not really. Say not same chapter. Same chapter, same, either one of those. Number 7, the Frierdiker Rabbe says, is Gelassenkeit. What's Gelassenkeit? So Gelassenkeit means a calmness, a serenity. So when I talk about this with my colleagues, I actually talk about specifically when you're having a disagreement with your spouse. But this is one of all of them that I've actually taken the advice that's given about this. And I'm going to get into it to my life outside also of my marriage. What do I mean by that? So actually, it's actually the same article that I read. So what does it mean, a calmness, a serenity? When you get upset, how do you resolve conflict? What is your method? What do you do? So that same article that I read about, it must have been like 8 years ago that I read it. about don't go to sleep angry, not because I was one of those people who took don't go to sleep angry like a terrorist Moshe. And I would be like, you can't go to sleep, you need to finish, right? So like I took it like it was terrorist Moshe. And reading that was so, for me, freeing, like, okay, this makes more sense to me. So in the same article, it had another piece of advice, and that was about, I guess you can call it like conflict resolution. And what did it say? It basically said that when you're angry, now, this goes any part of your life. This could go with your friends, with your family, with your siblings, with your coworkers. I use this example with my housekeeper even. Okay, you are 100% right. Now, you're not always 100% right. It's going to happen once in a while that you are in your life. And you are just, you need to talk to whoever it is that you had this disagreement with, and you need to talk because you know, like, this has to be taken care of right away. What is the advice given? So the advice given is absolutely you must have the conversation. But if you can, wait till the next day. If you can't wait till the next day, at least wait an hour. What will waiting accomplish? Waiting will accomplish that whatever conversation you have will at least be productive. It will go somewhere positive. If you want to just yell and vent and scream like you do to your sister when you're mad at her, okay, go for it. But that conversation is not going anywhere. It was just to vent. If you want it to be resolved, like I always say, when I get a phone call from school that my daughter misbehaves, she's so lucky that she's not standing next to me. Because if she would be, it would be a whole, right? But I don't see her till 4 hours later. Picked up the phone, called my husband. You're not gonna believe what she did. She walks in the door 4 hours later. She eats. She does her homework. I'm like, hey, how was school today? Anything happen? It's a whole different tone. It's a whole different conversation. I'm not saying that it's easy to wait. But when I say that I use this particular one in all aspects of my life, in all my relationships, when I have some, what we call Sabrenta feelings, like just this, burning thing, I got to get this. If I wait, I cannot tell you how much better the conversation goes. I'm not saying you always have to wait. Yeah, you find something to do. You exercise, go for a long walk down Eastern Parkway, clean. I'm a cleaner. Well, again, it's not always possible. Like, at least I know, like, if it's my sister and I'm mad, I could yell at her and I can come back to her an hour later and we're fine, But like, I can't, like, if, like, I'll use it, my housekeeper, right? Like I told her I need you to do something before I come home because da-da-da-da-da, and I come home and it's not done. Yelling at her, all it's going to accomplish, either she's going to quit or she's just mad the rest of the day, right? And I could really, and could I have lived without it? No, I ended up doing it myself, which was annoying because I had to do other things. But the next day I'm like, remember I called you, I told you to do this and you said, yeah, and you didn't do it. It really messed up my day. And I said it differently. So when I say that this particular thing, I use in almost all my relationships, literally almost all my relationships. It's hard, but once you realize how amazing it works, I'm mad at one of my kids and I want to just shoot off that WhatsApp message or that text message to them, and I don't. It goes there. The whole conversation goes differently. It just does. And it takes a lot of work. I'm not saying it doesn't take work, but it's the Frierdiker Rabbe saying, Gelassenkeit, be calm, think it through. And again, even if you are 100% right, even so, wait, if you can. Number 8, the Frierdiker Rabbe says, is Ordnung gekleidigt, being organized, being mesuder. And this is really pretty basic and simple. Like, keeping an organized home is really important. This is separate from cleanliness. Who's going to do what? Who's going to accomplish what? Who's going to be in charge of what? Like, well, I was told that men have to take out the garbage, so I'm not taking out the garbage, right? Like, maybe your husband's not home in the morning when the garbage has to go out, or he left, and right? This is what I say. Figure out what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, and you do that. Well, your husband's going to be good at certain things, and that's fine too. And then there's stuff that's like down the middle, and you guys have to compromise. You have to figure out what, we don't want to become resentful. We don't want to become angry about it. And you have to try to figure out a way to make it that you're not the one who's always picking up the slack and things like that. And it takes a little bit of I guess that woman's intuition. And again, like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, well, you love making supper, and you're like, well, I already made supper 5 nights a week. Can you? And your husband's like, but I walk in the door at 7, and you come in the door at 5. I could do it, but you're gonna have to wait, right? It's. I guess it's a little common sense and figure out what works. But again, a very big part of conflict is organization in your house and who's doing what. So you want to be on top of that a little bit. I'm sorry? I don't know. Like, did my husband know that I hate washing dishes? No. And did I know that my husband would wash the dishes every month Shabbos? No, but I'm so grateful. It worked out, but I also knew that my husband doesn't clean bathrooms, and I love cleaning bathrooms, so it worked. But I love cleaning bathrooms, but I will not wash a dish. I will not. I happen to enjoy, my mother taught me how, and I cleaned up every Friday. That was my job. And I happen to love cleaning bathrooms. I love cleaning closets. I love cleaning bathrooms.
My mother's like, wow,
are you sick?
Who cleaned the bathroom this week? It's so clean. Since then, I love cleaning the bathroom.
Look how the words were so validating. It's again, I will say, like, and then I tell my husband, you want to divide. When we first got married, it's like, you want to divide paying the bills. It's not a problem, but the lights are going to get shut off because I'm not going to remember. I'm just not. I'm not that type of person. I'm just not. Like, certain things, like, you could till the cows come home. I'm not going to do them. But certain things, even though I don't like doing them, I do them. And certain things my husband doesn't love doing, he does too. It's a dance. It's a dance. You don't discuss it when you're dating. It's kind of like what you see, like you do discuss, like, what responsibilities did you have in your, like, what did you do? What do you know? I guess you could. I wouldn't make it or break it, but when it talks about running an organized house, figure out what works for you. And then, one of the pieces of advice that I give, like, if you want to, like, really go, like, one of the college teachers said, she's like, you know what, when my couples are getting stuck on, like, these 5 chores that no one wants to do, and they're getting resentful, they're getting angry, they take 5 index cards, they write each job down on the index card, they turn it upside down, each of them pick 2 or 3, and for the next 3 weeks, that's your job. There's nothing to talk about. That's it. That's one way. That's one way. What?
It's also just like, we live in apartments and we have jobs with our roommates. Like, how do you divide that?
Yeah, but then how awful does it feel when your roommate doesn't do what she's supposed to do? Right. Like, that's what I said. Like, I was that type of person. I didn't care. I would literally lock all my friends out of the room, lock them out, and say, you guys can't come. No, I did. I was a little bit nuts. I would, like, clean everybody's. I would make their beds. I would be like, but it didn't happen. It was more like a once every 2 months kind of thing, because it took 2 months. It got 2 months for it to get really bad. And I couldn't live in the room. It was like 3 roommates. I couldn't function. Cleaning for me is very cathartic. Everybody's different. But like I said, the dishes will pile up until I will not wash dishes. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. I just don't like it. Everybody has their thing, I guess. Now,
okay with you cleaning the cup?
They had no choice. They were my friends, and they had no choice. I don't know if I'm talking about when I was like 14 or 15. Like, these are not like, we were young. We went away. We were all away from home. We were 13. We had a lot more mature. I'm going to say that you guys are not mature when you're 13, but nothing like we were. We were away from home from 13. No cell phones. There was nothing. I spoke to my mother once a week. Yeah. It's just how we lived. Like, what I just had a conversation with my daughter-in-law on Friday night, and we were saying something about how I'm not a complainer by nature. So I said the reason why I think I'm not, because I have siblings who are, and I have kids who are, and, like, I'm not a complainer. And I said, I think because from the time I was 13, no one would listen to me. I don't talk. Like, who am I complaining to? I couldn't call my mother to complain. I had to wait till Sunday to complain about something that happened on Monday. Like, you just kind of coped. You just, like, I think that's what it is. Because I have a lot of people in my life who complain. I'm like, why am I, like, where did I fall in this equation? Whatever. This is a total sidetrack because my ADD is kicking in. Sorry.
Where are you from?
Minnesota. I mean, originally. And now my family lives in California, but we lived in Minnesota. I grew up in Minnesota my whole life. That's why I call 911. Okay. Number 9 is this one I find fascinating, because think about, it was 1940. It was 1940 in the Frierdiker Rabbe. I told the story before everybody got here. In 1940, the Frierdiker Rabbe is telling this woman, a gute Stimmung, a freiliche Stimmung. What does that mean? It means having a happy countenance, being happy, bringing simcha into your home. Think about the Frierdiker Rebbe's mindset at this time. This is what he's telling this girl, that if you are happy and if your husband is happy, Your home is happy. And like, if you want to translate into today's vernacular, this is self-care. What makes you happy? Is it getting a massage? Go get one. Is it getting a manicure? Go get one. Is your husband wants to go exercise or you want to go exercise? Go exercise. Do the things that make you happy, because if you're happy, the energy in your home, the homes that you live in right now, will be happy. Do the things that you love. Flowers. Go buy yourself a bouquet of flowers. You love seeing flowers on your table. Do that. It makes you happy. It puts you in a happy place, because then the energy in your home is happy and the atmosphere in your home is happy. And then finally, the Frierdiker Rabbe says, and I think this one's really tough when we talk, we'll delve into it in a little bit. And the Frierdiker Rabbe says, Chavere shebatziyung, and that means friendship. I'm going to bring friendship into your marriage. And when we talk about friendship, this is definitely like along like marriage advice, but I'm going to like a few important points. So you know how, so first of all, you and your husband, just keep this in mind, you know, Mirta Shem, you and your husband want to be friends. It's you want to remember all those things that you connected at in the beginning, and then take that with you into your future, and not get completely only preoccupied with your marriage, with your kids and their health and your bills. And, you know, you want to do the things that, you know, that reminds you why you were friends to begin with. And that means going on date night, and date night means doesn't getting dressed up and paying for an expensive restaurant. Could mean going down Eastern Parkway and going for a walk and talking about the things that interest you and the things that interest him. But beyond that, and this is where I think is tough, and I think you could all really, really practice now. So you know how when you get mad or in a bad mood and you're talking to your mother, your father, your sister, your brothers, you can get a little snarky, got a little attitude, and you could say something, and it doesn't really matter, because tomorrow they're still going to be there. They're your family. Unfortunately, we are the harshest with the people that we love the most. Whereas you probably would not talk to your friends that way. You would not take that tone with your friends, because your friends would be like, no, I'm out of here. You just wouldn't. So imagine, and this goes back to what the Rebbe said about tone, and what we're going to talk is, imagine if you worked on your tone now. When you speak now to the people that you love the most, be it a criticism, be it because you're upset, and you are just mindful of the tone that you use. It's actually interesting, in psychology, there's this term called mirroring. In Tanya, there's a terminology called kamayim panim al panim. Nothing in psychology is new. It all comes from what we know to exist from Torah and Chassidus. What is kamayim panim al panim? When you look at a body of water, what is reflected back at you? Your reflection. And what's mirroring? When you speak to somebody in a kind tone, in a patient tone, not a condescending tone, not a belligerent tone, not in an angry tone, without even realizing it, the other person will possibly, over time, change their tone as well. And you could try this out. You could try this out with a particularly annoying coworker who just keeps getting angry, and you just always answer calmly. Not like, why are you getting so angry? Don't do that. But more like just the tone that you're using is a tone that just garners the other person to answer you in a way that they don't even realize they're changing their tone. Now, obviously, in a marriage, this can work wonders. And when you start out together, this is a beautiful thing. No one's saying you can't disagree. No one's saying you can't get upset. It's just, how are you going to do that? And what are the words and the tone that you're going to use? And be mindful of that. And I go back to what I said before, and that is that the Frierdiker Rabbe took the time to write out these thoughts and these points, and to help this young woman. And I think that I can't even like fathom what was going on in the world at the time. And the Frierdiker Rabbe still did that. So I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, I did not read the whole thing. But I gave you the source. I could tell it to you again, and you're more than welcome to read it. I did not read the whole thing. It doesn't have, as far as I've been told, it doesn't have a very good English translation. It's translated from Yiddish to Hebrew, and the English translation, if I'm not mistaken, is not so great. That's why I just chose to use these. In general, I focus on the 10 words. But you want the source again? Okay, so it's a Frierdiker Rabbe's Igros Kodesh, Chelek Hey, Daf Nun Zayin, Chaf Tes Nisan, Hey Tufshin. Sure. Igros Kodesh Chelek Hey. Daf Nun Zayin. Chaf Tes Nisan. Hey Tufshin. Any questions for anybody? Thoughts? Anything? Anybody want to share? Nothing?
A lot of beautiful, wonderful things.
Not my word, not mine. So, I can't take any credit for it. Any credit for it.
On like what you were saying before about you don't have to be in the same book, not just have to be on the same page. Like you see that playing out.
I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in my own life. Like you thought that you were going to marry somebody and it was really important to you that your husband, davens 3 times a day with the minyan, right? That's a big one, right? And he davens, shachar to the minyan, mincha, he's at work, and Mariv, sometimes he manages to get 770 and sometimes he's, davening in the kitchen. It happens.
Yeah,
It happens.
Like that's like
I again, like I think it's my personal take on it. I think it's more important that he wakes up in the morning than if he's missing a minyan. But again, it's me, only from my experience and from my I'm not saying it's not important, and I will say I'll always say as a wife you have to remember that it's important that you support your husband to go to minyan if he wants, if he can, and not be like, I need your help with the kids, come home. There's a fine balance there, but I'm a big proponent of letting your husband do those things because that's part of his ruchnius of the house. I think so. It's a little bit of a different generation now. I see a lot of husbands staying home and not going to shul to help their wives. My generation, that did not happen. Did not happen. I would never have thought of it even a million years. But then again, my generation husbands didn't really change diapers, and now they do. So I'm just saying, it's a good question. But I think I mentioned a little bit about that. I would talk just a tiny drop about communication, just some,
Such a funny said we could use some more communication.
I'll just a little bit. I don't have long. What time is it?
Okay. What if your husband doesn't buy himself things he likes because he doesn't want to give into tithus? Is it helpful or unhelpful to buy him a treat?
So that's a very vague question because tithus has one connotation in my brain, and then there's things that he likes, which is another. Meaning, if he likes a good bottle of wine, it's okay. If he's just her husband doesn't like to buy himself things that he likes because he doesn't want to give. I guess it's a concept of iskafia, right? I think that's a bit of a mashpia question, meaning you don't want to deny yourself. There's nothing wrong with you having that nice bottle of wine.
She would buy things for him. Would that be a shtuck?
I don't think so. If she knows that he wants it, he wouldn't buy it. Again, I'm not sure specifically what we're talking about. I don't know. But like I said, I'm using the example of a bottle of wine as a taiva and can be okay sometimes,
Is it different?
If your husband wants to buy a 52-inch screen TV and start watching sports, okay, no. What were you saying is different?
Is it different for him to buy it for himself versus for his wife to buy it for him?
If they know, I'm not getting into people's Sholom Bayis, but if you know that there's something that your husband wants that's not good for him,
right,
then I would say no, don't do it. Not you for him, not him for himself. But if it's just something that he wants, he wants a really yummy, delicious cashmere sweater, and he's never going to buy it for himself. It's gosh, okay, it's Hanukkah. We do Hanukkah gifts, so whatever. Again, I'm not sure. I hope I answered the question. I could be completely off base with what she's talking about. He really, really, really wants an iPad. But once he gets the iPad, he's never going to go off of it because once it's on there, maybe you could get it and you could filter it for him. Maybe that's the issue. That could very well be. Make sure that it's filtered. And then that's all. Otherwise, don't buy it for him because then he's going to be on it all the time. And then, who knows what's going on there. So that's a good question. In that respect, yeah, maybe not. Depends what it is. Anybody else? So just like in the realm of communication, one of the things that I like to just bring out is this is really very simple. And I think that this is communication for all aspects of your life. When you have something to discuss with somebody, when you have something that's really important that you want to say, keep in mind, very important that this is my main rule. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You got, you got to use I words, not you words, meaning like, I really appreciated when you did A, B, and C for me, but when you did this, it wasn't so comfortable. You like when someone hears you, they get defensive. It was this is how I felt. This is how I felt. And that's with all your everything in your life when we talk about how you're going to communicate. Also, remember, this is a big one. When are you going to decide to have this discussion? Remember, we spoke about living in that uncomfortable space. It's 8 a.m. and you have something really you meant to talk to your husband last night, but you were just so nervous and you didn't. And as he's walking out to work, you decide to talk to him about it. He can't answer you. It's on his head a whole day, and you're upset that he didn't answer you. When is the right time? Sometimes you have to live in that uncomfortable space and find the right time. And also, what I like to do, you ever write someone a text message or a WhatsApp and be like, whoa, that sounds harsh, and you delete and you rewrite. Sometimes even when you're having a conversation, you got to kind of like write it out, speak it to yourself in the mirror, and then be like, whoa, that didn't sound very good, and like rewrite it in your brain so that it comes out a little bit better. Those are just a few communication tips I like to give. Any other questions?
A lot of self-work.
Yeah, it is. It's not all so complicated, but it's helpful. This is such helpful advice. Understanding where someone else is coming from is so huge. Having patience for another person, like it's big. It's like I said, I wish I would have known some of this stuff. Gosh, I wouldn't have. Yeah, I wish. It is a lot, and I don't think it's a lot as in an undoable sense. I think it's a lot and it's very doable. Like the Frierdiker Rabbe does also make it sound super simple, I think what was that, like you putting each other first. One of the things, mikvah.org has a podcast and of Rabbi Yisrael Shurak, and he says, one of the things you should say to yourself every day is, today I'm putting my marriage first. There's like a little slogan in your brain. Today I'm putting my marriage first. It's like the most important to me.
Would you say practicing it nowadays would be I'm putting Aleph Sol first?
Aleph Sol is very broad, meaning I'm putting, well, you don't want to ever be I'm putting everyone else first before me, right? Like when you say you're putting your marriage first, it means that you're
That's one person. That's your main.
no, but it means what it's it means putting your marriage first also means like you're making a point, like all these other outside factors are secondary to your Sholom Bayis. Because these are all fundamental tips for Sholom Bayis. I mean, Michal might kill me, but sorry, Michal. I don't generally ever, and I can't even completely recommend this book or this philosophy, but there are certain parts about it that I happen to really, really like. And it's, is she gonna kill me? Are we still recording? Maybe we should stop recording or no? Okay. It's not a book. It's an institute. I guess you would call it the Gottman Institute. Gottman. The Gottman Institute. And I recently became a fan of a lot of what they have to say. Not everything, because now he happens to be modern Orthodox. Whereas the yarmulke, he's married to another woman, a Jewish woman. She wears pants, doesn't cover her hair. They're older. They have a lot of, what's fascinating about their whole derech is that it's based on actual research and studies and findings of years and years and years. Now also, they have a lot of stuff in their book that's not our derech, that they talk about, things that are not for us. But I think that I'm talking to people that can, listen to a YouTube interview of one of them and, get the important stuff out of it. Again, I'm not recommending that you go buy their book 8 First Dates. I'm not. I'm just saying that there's a lot of, it does, some of it doesn't. You'll read it and you'll see. You'll read it, some of it doesn't. Some of it doesn't, but some of it does. And I'm not talking to 18-year-olds. I'm talking to girls who can read a book and be like, this is not for me. This is not aligned with our hashkafa. And that's why I was like, shouldn't I? And I'm like, why not? Like there's some really, I first got into it about 2 years ago. Me and my husband, we drove up to the country and I literally made him listen, press pause. We talked about it. We listened to the end, press. Some of it did not apply to us.
Their videos are so cool.
And some of it, visually. There's some of their stuff that does not
Appreciate. What's the topic of?
So they basically have 5 things. I think it's 5 things that you do that can build up your marriage and make your marriage amazing. And then I think there's the 4 destructive things. I don't remember it off the top of my head now because I'd like to listen to it every once in a while just to refresh. but like one of the things that they talk about, which is so simple, is compliments. And not like, yay, you're amazing. No, just saying thank you. Just saying thank you. Asking about, like, let's say you end up marrying somebody who's in a field of business that you don't even appreciate. You don't know anything about it. You can still ask. And you could still, like, he can ask you, like, like my husband asks me every once in a while, like, oh, where are you going? What are you speaking about? Like, I know it's like goes over his head something. He's like busy with his own things. And when I know that he had a meeting, I'll ask him, how did your meeting go? Not because I need to know, but you take interest in what the other person does, which is a big deal. I don't know what, so he is Jewish. He's modern Orthodox.
Like, what's particularly dominant about that? Like,
So you have to listen. You have to. I haven't listened. I'll be honest. I haven't. It's been about 4 months since I listened to the last podcast, and I haven't really. And I very rarely. I'll tell you the honest truth. I very rarely talk about it. I internalize some of it to how it works for me, but if I don't talk about it, it's not fresh in my mind. One of the things that they talk about the 4 things that are bad. One of them is criticism. I don't want to like just talk about off the top of my head. Oop, that's my alarm. I have to be out of here in a few minutes. Sorry. No, I'm on the helpline, so my hour is 9 to 10. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Like, back to the part where you're putting in 80 and he's putting in 20.
Mhm.
Like, obviously, splitting up is not the end result. Like, how?
So when I say 80-20, let me explain what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a perfect example from my life. Okay. So my husband got hit by a car. He got hit by a car 2 years ago. And I would say that for the last 2 years, on a physical level in my home, it's about 80-20, not 80-20, because even with his broken leg and he can't walk and all the complications since everything. Whereas if I made a Friday night meal you've been to my Friday night meals, and you could feel free to give up my number if anybody needs a place to eat. I love having guests. On Friday night meal, my husband was up and working and clearing and cleaning and folding tables and chairs like nobody's business. I'm talking about right? Ever since then, he can't. So in certain aspects, it is 80-20. It is. I'm doing more, and that's life. That's just life, and that's what I mean by 80-20. And like, and when a spouse isn't well, even vice versa. Like when you have a baby and you can't do certain things, and he has to do certain things. That's what I mean. It's not like tit for tat. I'm doing this. It's just not like that. That's impractical. You're both giving 100% to the best of your ability, and sometimes you just can't. I'm not talking about selfishness. I'm not talking about, being self-absorbed. That's all I'm talking about. I'm talking about a healthy, by the way, everything I'm talking about, it's important to understand, is only really workable with 2 healthy people, fairly healthy. No one's perfect, right? We're not, right? So like, what? Exactly, right? Anything else? Go ahead.
No, okay, you said healthy people fairly. Like, what if somebody's just like not getting it? Like, something is just flying over their head. Like, what do you mean I have to like do this? Like they're just like didn't grow up this way or something, and you just missed that when you were dating. Like, I'm not like giving like real examples.
Right.
I'm just kind of like, yeah, scenario.
So this is what I always say. We all go into dating with what we think we know we want. And some of it's going to happen. And some of it's just not. And then guess what happens? Usually, a lot of the time, you're like pleasantly surprised that something you didn't think really mattered to you, your husband does. Like you thought you were going to marry a romantic guy. He seemed like it while you were dating. He always brought you flowers and he's, but in his practical everyday life, he didn't see that in his house. He knows that these are the things that you do. He's just not. He's, but on the same token, he's a provider. He takes care. He makes sure that you have everything that you need, but just not on a romantic level. Okay. We're not going to get everything we want. We're not. It's just, from my experience, what I see. And I think that that's like a good, you have your certain things that are super important to you. And then the rest is, you grow together and you become literally a part of the other person. I think that's what it is.
Where did you see that? It was an article, the 80-20 thing?
Oh, the 80-20, I think I heard it on a podcast. I heard it from somebody once. And I was like, because you know what it is? If someone would have told me that probably, like when I first got married, I would have been like, what are, I would have been, but only once I lived it, that I'm like, oh my God, now I understand. Like now it makes sense to me. Because it's just the way it is. Like we grow up, you grow old together, you do things, and this is just what happens. And it's not, we're never 100, it's like, if you're expecting even Steven, then yeah, that's not a good idea.
You can't even expect that from yourself.
Exactly. Right, exactly. That was probably, I'm big into podcasts. Because that's why I cook in my kitchen, I listen to podcasts, that's what I do, so. Okay, you're very welcome. I'm happy I was able to be here. We're done?
Yes.
As well.
Right. So
No.
we have a few traditions.
Okay.
First of all, I want to, nothing too scary, I hope.
Okay, nice.
First of all, I want to thank the sponsors, Rebbetzin and Rabbi Yehudis and Yessi and baby Danielle Suarez, all the way from Mexico. Shluchim in Mexico in honor of Yehudis' birthday on the 16th of Kislev. And a tradition is that Michal gifts our speaker with a gift, and she will gift that to you on behalf of all of us.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Shortly.
Don't worry about it.
She does. And another tradition is a selfie with the speaker, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, you mean like a which mic?
Oh yeah, you're good. You're good right here.
Oh, she sends those, Michal.
Yeah, just bear with me.
She sends those
Okay,
on her
I'm
chat.
gonna try my best. I'm not a professional. Everyone make sure you're good. Okay, guys ready? Whoever wants to be in it? Sorry, one second.